How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to TheBlueShifting and welcome back to Chaos Head. Last week I spoiled you. We had a really big episode, which is good because it also made up for the fact that I had to skip a week. So maybe it all just balances out. But I'm going to say just don't expect that to happen too often. Sometimes this stuff happens that I don't want to put it down, and other times I can't do too long. And unfortunately, this might be one of those times because I've been recording a lot. Because again, I had to play catch up. I had to do like a whole week's worth of recordings in like 2 days. And so I'm at the tail end of some longer recording sessions, and so my throat's kind of getting sore. So I'll go as far as I can, but I'm not going to push myself too hard. The other thing about this is I remembered from last time that the backgrounds are going to be utilized. I should be looking for people that look out of place. There's a guy in a blue with a folder in his arm that looks a little weird, but I don't know. Like, I feel like I feel like the game's trying to train me to like watch the background because like there's stuff happening that might be like relevant, which is unusual, but I like it when visual novels take kind of what seems to be just kind of part and parcel of the formula for a visual novel and they play with it. So the idea of having like these kind of standardized backdrops with standardized like the backgrounds are there to kind of help set the scene, but using them to hide secrets, because most of the time people who are reading the visual novel are not paying attention to the backdrop because it's more of a flavor thing. So that's pretty cool. If they especially like lean into that a bit more, I'll be very excited about it. And might be a cool thing to consider if you've ever wanted to make a visual novel, is like play with the tropes, play with the stuff that's just part of it. You don't like use the expectations of a visual novel reader against them. Could be a really fun way to tell a story. Anyway, yeah, we met. Oh, whatever her nickname is. She talks to us in our minds. She's interesting. Bloodthirsty, turns out. She has these urges to kill, which is crazy. But Sena also knows her and seems to be relatively chill. We kind of got to see like a normal, nicer side of Sena, but she also is still very adamant about that what we're doing is very wrong and very dangerous, which is very true. I've been saying that for a while now. Like if he can manifest, like pull things from different realities or unreality into reality, who knows, like if there's a cap or a scope to that. That's the thing is the limited. It seems currently he's just limited by the fact that he doesn't know how to control it, but if he ever could learn and he has uncapped potential, then he could become more scary than like the worst super weapons that we currently have in the world today, which can already destroy the planet. So that's fun. Anyway, let's just jump into it. So I don't know how much time I have, so we'll jump right on and go. So she's saying bye-bye. With a small wave and a smile, Kozupii disappeared in the direction of the station ticket gate. Sena and I watched her go. I would have preferred not to be alone with Sena, but it seemed like she wasn't in a leaving Shibuya mood yet. Maybe she was planning to start wandering around the area like she normally did. I wanted to head back home as soon as possible, but there was one thing I had to ask the resident gigalomaniac brainiac before I did. Even when I tried talking to her, the stern expression remained on her face. It was a lot better when Kozupii was here, but man, would it kill her to be a little more approachable? I assumed she'd heard me, so while my heart might have been beating on my chest, I asked my question anyway.
Kozupii no kokoro no koe mo gigalomaniacs no nōryoku nano?
I didn't expect her to answer me. I expected her to just hit me with a condescending ha and leave it at that. Sena glanced at me once, then shifted her eyes toward the jumbotron resting above the scramble crossing. Okay, so it's kind of similar to our abilities, but it's interesting that she's manifesting it in such a specific way. And it's manifesting in a way that can be understood by other people. And I'm guessing, I still think that she can also read surface thoughts of people as well. So she can probably do that without actually talking back to them. She replied.
それを他人のデッドスポットに送り込んでいるに過ぎない。仕組みはさっき説明したものと何も変わらない。
Okay. Interesting.
送り込んだ粒子を映像ではなく音声に変換しているんだ。電話と同じだな。
That's kind of cool.
そして、Kozueから心の声という妄想を送り込まれたことで、お前とKozueの間で周囲共通認識が成立したんだ。
Oh.Okay.
テレパシーで会話しているように思えるが、 全然違う。
だったら、僕の心の声はどうしてコズピーに届いたの？
That's a good question, because yeah, it certainly feels a lot like mental communication. I hadn't seen any delusions to Kozupi's dead spots. So I hadn't sent any delusions to Kozupi's dead spots. So if what Sena was saying was true, it should have only been a one-way conversation starring Kozupii. And yet, despite that, we'd had a conversation with just our inner voices, several even.
ギガロマニアックスは他人の妄想を見ることができる。Kozueは特にその能力が高い。
Okay, so she can kind of force the impression and change of reality upon others.
他人が垂れ流す妄想をほぼ強制的に見せられていると言ってもいい。
Okay. And that's probably the biggest issue here, is that it's forced. Like, this is something that can be enacted upon others. It's an intrusion on reality and other people's perceptions. It's very invasive and often can go against the consent or even knowledge of the individual. So, in a way, it's very problematic in that regard, because it's taking away the agency of another person. It's taking away their ability to truly comprehend what's actually happening, because it just overwrites a lot of what their understanding is. It shortcuts the brain, and they probably don't even realize it's happening. See delusions. Was such a thing possible? I definitely couldn't do that, and if I couldn't, then I probably wasn't actually a gigalomaniac. Suddenly, Sena looked further away from me, her gaze shifting from the jumbotron to the crowds of people walking through Scramble Crossing.
ギガロマニアックスとなったものは誰だろうと一度は壊れているんだよ。
Oh, like mental break.
壊れたって何が？
心がだ。Kozueは東京に来る前、奴らに追い詰められて心を壊した。
Who's them? And so, Sena began to tell me about what Kozupii had experienced before she transferred schools. She began by saying that she had seen it in an image, one that she'd witnessed back when she first met Kozupii. Oh boy, imagine this is going to be fun. Ever since she was a little girl, Kozue had possessed a peculiar ability to view the minds of others. Despite this affliction, Kozue managed to live a somewhat peaceful life by approaching her power in her own way, hiding it from others. Which is, honestly, frankly, it's sad, but it is the right thing to do. You realize, especially if, like, you can have an ability on others, but you can be so easily controlled and manipulated because you're just a person in every other regard. The instant anyone with power, whether it be government, private individuals, what have you, as soon as they were to find out you had something like that, they would immediately decide that they either had the right to dictate how you use your power, when you use your power, or if you should be allowed to use your power. Which sucks. Her change had begun with mirrors. Upon entering high school, Kozue began to see her reflection in mirrors more and more frequently throughout her daily life. At first, she believed it was only coincidence. It would only occur about twice a day. But as time went by, the frequency gradually increased. Kozupii would encounter people holding mirrors more than 10 times in a single day. None of these encounters were particularly suspect, just people passing her by on the street holding a mirror, or a classmate fixing her makeup in the bathroom. However, regardless of whether these occurrences were mere coincidence or indeed intentional, Kozue would almost always see her own reflection in the mirrors. Eventually, all those who held mirrors began to make noises akin to suppressed laughter. In their minds, they called out to Kozue with the words, "Who are you?" In the classroom, on campus, en route to school, while shopping, everywhere Kozue went, these people would appear. It was not a specific person perpetrating it. It was a different person every time. That's really weird. But in Kozue's eyes, anyone who possessed a mirror began to look suspicious. Anyone who would suppress their laughter around her began to look suspicious. So it made her paranoid. Before long, even those without mirrors began to look suspicious, and Kozue began to face hallucinations in which they would all call out to her with, "Who are you?" She became nearly neurotic, and the voices present in the back of her head refused to leave. One day, Kozue mumbled something to herself in the mirror.
お前は誰?
Oh, that's a good break moment. Upon saying those words, Kozue felt an immense sense of fear, one that told her she truly did not know the answer. A girl with the same face as hers addressed her from the other side of the mirror.
お前は誰?
Ever since that day, Kozue could no longer speak, and she was unable to look at herself in the mirror. Even still, the question of "Who are you?" would continue to assault her. She did not even know whose voice it was inside her own head anymore. And due to another facet of her peculiar ability, much akin to the broken fax machine, Kozue would receive the voices of other people indiscriminately, regardless as if she wanted to or not. She herself had no say in the matter. And thus, Kozue's mind was torn to shreds. One day, in her second year of high school, Kozue was cleaning the classroom at the end of the day. As she tidied up, 3 female classmates of hers, all with mirrors in hand, were whispering something among themselves. Mirrors, suppressed laughter. Then came the question, who are you? Had it truly been the inner voice of one of her 3 classmates, or had it been a hallucination on Kozue's part? It did not matter. The reflection in the mirror found its way to Kozue's eyes, both of which were trembling in fear. For a moment, Kozue's vision blurred. Had it been intentional or coincidence? It did not matter. At that very moment, Kozue's mind was, after facing endless strain for well over a year, finally broke, the event accompanied by the sound of glass shattering. Upon realizing this, Kozue screamed from the deepest depths of her lungs. Out of the corner of her eye, Kozue saw her D-sword and took hold of it for the very first time. She then proceeded to attack her 3 classmates. Ooh. The hands of the 3, each of which holding a mirror, were then severed by the rebooted D-sword in less than an instant. Holy crap. How did they explain that? Like, wouldn't you go to, like, court? I guess maybe they wanted to put her, like, in court, but they couldn't prove how she'd done it. According to the minimum attendance chart, I didn't have to go to school today, but despite that, I was heading there anyway for one reason and one reason only. We just gonna leave it there? Apparently. Okay. To see Rimi. I had no doubt that the DQNs in class would make fun of me, just like they always did. It would definitely suck, but if it meant I could see Rimi, I could endure it. As I passed through the school gate, I thought back to yesterday. When we'd parted, Sena had made it a point to say something.
お前が望むと望まないとに関わらず、もしこれ以上踏み込んでくるようなら、負を正にするぐらいの強い意識を持つんだな。
Yeah. Yeah, okay, that's the thing too. Like, remember I talked about how, like, if he sees how uncapped potential, how dangerous it could be? His negative emotions run away from him. Even when we try to have a positive delusion, right? It sometimes just warps into a negative one. And the problem is that if he has a powerful enough delusion and he pulls it into reality, and he's constantly having negative ones, he's going to enter a cycle of destruction. Like, it's just going to build and build and build and lead to, like, doom, essentially. His doom, other people's doom, the world's doom, I don't know.
中途半端な気持ちじゃ、妄想に食われるだけだぞ。
She's got a point, but how do you do that, Sena? Can you train us? Like, what are you, like, what? I didn't want to get involved in anything that sounded dangerous, so I opted not to ask anything else. Besides, I still didn't know how far I'd have to go to get my hands on a D-sword. I was no hero. I was just a useless piece of crap that couldn't even protect his own sister. But it was also possible that Shogun could show up again. He seemed playing with me like it was some kind of game after all. Maybe he'd feel like sending me another quest soon. That's the thing I would have pointed out too. Like, I wish he could point to Sena. It's something he should realize is, like, he says he doesn't want to get involved. I absolutely get that. It would be lovely if that were a choice. Sena thinks it's a choice, but I feel like the problem is there's forces at work that are trying to force his hand. They got really close to forcing us forward last time, and we don't know their motive yet. He's likely going to try it again. We may not have the option unless we literally are okay with watching others or ourselves die. But again, feels like he's really kind of just getting put into a corner here. Just the thought alone terrified me. I tried to grasp my D-sword, but even then it was just to protect myself from him. Without that sword, how could I ever hope to escape his evil clutches? Maybe if Rimi were by my side like she said she would be, but she'd been absent from school lately, which worried me. What if she'd been taken hostage just like Nanami? Was there anyone out there who could help me? They would have to be someone with a D-sword. Ayase couldn't because she was injured. Sena definitely wouldn't. And Kozupii was she was fairly weird. You're one to talk, bro. My head looking squarely at the floor, I entered the classroom. Before taking my seat, I took a quick look around. I looked toward Rimi's seat at first. Empty. Was she taking today off too? Was it really that simple? Was she just taking time off? I began to feel anxious. I wanted to see her. I wanted to see that cheerful face. Next, I looked over at Kozupi's desk. Hey, she was in her seat, face down and huddled up. I was reminded of what Sena told me yesterday, and now it made sense why Kozupii was always like that. It's so disconcerting. She's like huddled in her chair, not making eye contact with anybody, and she's just like, hello. Morning, Kozupii. I didn't make eye contact, but I greeted her with my inner voice. The female DQNs were watching me, smirking. Well, okay. Yeah. It was no different than yesterday. They'd all already labeled me as the otaku freak who said he was a psychic and made an A of himself on TV. That label wasn't going away anytime soon. The male DQNs didn't seem to have arrived yet. It was pretty common for them to skip the first period, and that was fine by me. I took my seat. But when I did, that voice called my name.
Taku, ohayo.
Wait, which one is this one? Oh, fetch! Hi! Shocked! I looked up in panic. There she stood right in front of my eyes. Rimi. What a hint of shyness, she gave me a short wave.
Hisashiburi.
Where have you been?
Rimi.
Where have you been? It wasn't an illusion. There was a definite presence. She was breathing. Her hair was rustling. She was blinking. She's blinking a lot, actually. She was right there. She was right here. I felt a twinge in the back of my nose, a tightness squeezed within my chest. I felt like I was going to cry. Still hadn't sat down. I'd just frozen with my head hanging down. I was so happy I'd gotten to see her again.
Chotto, Taku? どうしたの? もしかして泣いてるの?
The waterworks come easy to him. I frantically shook my head, as if my DQN found out I was crying, they'd start making fun of me all over again. I told myself that I couldn't cry, but the tears kept flowing.
わかった。私に再会できて嬉しいんだ。そうでしょ。なんてね。ちょっと自意識過剰だったかな。
Even as she joked around so cheerfully, all I could do was continue shaking my head. I couldn't even look at her. If I did, I knew I'd really start bawling. Suddenly, someone clapped me on the back.
Oh, Taku.
Okay. So now that Rimi's here, you're finally just gonna be normal again? Not sure I like that. It was Misumi-kun. With an uncomfortable look on his face, his slap was a lot weaker than usual. You certainly had no issue ignoring me before. Why start paying attention to me now all of a sudden? I'm sure you'd regret talking to me. I'm sure you'll regret talking to me. You'll become a DQN's next target, just like me. Yeah, Rimi, Misumi-kun, even you're both better off not associating with otaku freaks like me. I remained silent, but Misumi-kun forced a smile.
暗いな。朝から新規臭いぜ。
So I think, my guess is that he really likes Rimi. So he's here for her, but she cares about us, and so he becomes our friend in order for her to like have a positive view of him, which is interesting. Poor guy.
ま、お前はそういうやつだって分かってるけどな。
As harsh as his words were, I didn't get the feeling that he was joking or acting sarcastic. After all, it was pretty common for him to just say stuff like that.
そういう大臣は朝から無駄に爽やかだね。
無駄にとか言うな。久々に学校来たと思ったらいきなりそれか?
Yeah, plus you're Miss Cheery too.
じゃあ、嘘くさい爽やかさ。
Okay, that might be real.
なたく、この言い草どう思うよ?
I nodded ambiguously. The tears had somehow managed to stop. The usual routine was happening right in front of me. Both of them were completely oblivious to the fact that my standing in class had taken a steep nosedive.
そういえば、岸本のことを聞いたか? まだ入院中らしいぜ。怪我は大したことなかったんだけど、精神的にかなり参ってるらしい。
No, yeah, I'm sure.
いいか、タク。女を落とすのに一番手っ取り早いのは、弱ってる時に優しくしてやることだ。
Fetch me, dude. Or you could just care. Fetch. I feel like that would work for anybody, first off. And second of all, if you're doing it as a manipulation tactic, that's gross. And I imagine that actually wouldn't work very well. I don't know. maybe you could trick someone who's really in a vulnerable state, but most of the time I think you could feel the genuineness, especially because, I don't know, you're carrying, if you were carrying beforehand, maybe it would make sense. I don't know.
というわけで俺、本気で岸本の見舞いに行こうかなと思ってんだよね。
大地最低。
You kinda are, dude.
今度こそ彼女さんに刺されるよ。
お見舞いに行くだけだろ。別にやましいことじゃねえよ。
I want to see this mystical creature that is your girlfriend. I'm not convinced she exists.
ほんの数秒前と言ってることが違うし。
What I think I said before though, like, what if it was Sena? That'd be so insane.
そういえばタクって岸本と知り合いだったよな。な、一緒に行ってくんね。
It was the typical subject matter for Misumi-kun. I thought for sure he was going to ask me about my psychic powers, but when he didn't, that caught me completely off guard. But instead of noticing, Misumi-kun went right back to what he was saying. And then we fell into our usual routine. Misumi-kun talking and talking, Rimi occasionally butting in with a sharp jab, me just giving vague responses. And the fact that it was no different than usual made me happy. Even though this isn't usual, Rimi didn't exist until a month ago, but okay, whatever. Oh, you have the creepiest smile. At the top floor of the Nozomi Group headquarters with the presidential office, Norosa Jinichi stood near the window, lighting a cigarette ablaze. Nozomi Group. An enormous corporate group with abundant subsidiaries, one that conducted business while being accompanied by licensed approval from the nation itself. A number of those subsidiaries, I'm not saying that right, subsidiaries, then found success in a variety of business fields, from sales to clothing to groceries, to managing sales and importing and trading, importing as a trading company. Norose, who reigned above all as the apex of the group, looked below the grand view of his castle. His conscious mind, however, was not gazing upon the scenery before him. Repeatedly tapping his foot against the floor in agitation, his lips curled in a sneer.
まったく。老人たちの相手は面倒ですよ。そう思いませんか。彼らは臆病すぎる。だからこそ、ここまでのし上がってきた、とも言えるのでしょうが。
Okay. If he's talking to Shogun, I'm gonna lose my mind.
利用するにも、こうあれこれと横槍を入れられては、いい加減うんざりしてきますよ。現実は悲しいかな。300人委員会の影響力というものを侮ることはできません。ただ、いずれ近いうちに、そのシステムも崩壊する。世界の支配構造は組み替えられる。楽しみですか？私もですよ。ここまで随分時間がかかってしまいました。プロジェクトノア。
Oh boy.
立ち上げからすでに5年余り。
Project Noah. I can already just guess based on the name. It's not that hard. I imagine it was a lot more like sneaky for an audience that wasn't familiar with Christian history, but Noah's built the ark, right? The whole idea of the world was destroyed, but the select few were preserved and prepared and were able to like reign supreme and inherit the new world after like the chaff was knocked away. So Project Noah is probably essentially that. Build an ark, fill it with the people you like and influence and all that, and then let the rest of the world burn away and take over what's left. Norosa approached his personal desk. The solid desk of natural oak contained few ornaments of any note, adorned only with items one might find at a typical office setting. At the table's edge, however, a single conspicuous object casually lay. Norose grasped the green, strangely designed character in his hand. Upon giving it a single disinterested glance, he promptly discarded it into the waste bin.
さて。
His narrowed eyes turned to the dim room's interior. The rear of the room, where the moonlight could not reach, housed a slightest hint of another person.
まさか、君がギガロマニアックスだとは思いもよりませんでした。どうやら、神すらも私の味方をしてくれているようだ。君のサンプルを取らせてもらいますよ。 何？怯える必要はありません。私は元医師でしてね。インフォームドコンセントはきちんとしなければ気が済まないたちなのです。
Right, sure, because you just look like the picture of following protocol.
そもそもノア2のハードウェアはすでに完成しています。あと必要なのはソフトウェアの方でしてね。
I don't know why it only does that when I'm playing this game, but for some reason the BattleNet just like, oh, we're gonna update now. Screw that. I'm gonna get rid of that. I tried. I wanted to try hardcore WoW, but I couldn't get anyone else to do it with me, and so I just never went anywhere with it. But it's like the launcher's installed on my computer, and it won't go away, so I just need to fix that. Cool.
そのために君たちギガロマニアックスのサンプルが多く必要なのです。
Sure.
正確に言うならば NA シナプスに関するコードサンプル。脳の働きに指令を出す役割を果たしている部位の行動サンプルですよ。
Code samples. And they want like samples from the brain. Now, is he talking about scanning the brain? Because they do have the technology to scan and like try and recreate like the neuronic synapses systems. But it sounds like he means like physical, like actually collecting brain tissue.
コードサンプルには個人差があります。持っている能力が高いギガロマニアックスは NA シナプスもより活性化し、脳のより広い範囲にわたって効果を及ぼします。
Alright, so synapses again. We'll just look at it, but like synapses are sites formed between neurons and other cells that receive and transmit neurotransmitters. The shape resembles that of hands holding one another, but there's a gap of about 20 nanometers between each synapsis. Neurotransmitters move between these gaps. When doing so, appear almost as if they are floating.
人間の脳は全体の10分の1しか使われていません。しかしギガロマニアックスは違う。残りの10分の9の部位も使っていることが分かっています。
That's a bit of a misnomer. Like that's kind of what the theory was, but like it's actually not true. We utilize practically all of our brain. Now, there are parts of it that are redundant. That's why there are people who can suffer severe traumatic brain injuries and still have a functional life because the brain can compensate. It has backup systems. But the thing is that you can think of your brain when you're in a resting state uses about 10% of its power to just kind of idle, kind of like an engine of a car. If you have your car on, right, and you're sitting at a stoplight, if your foot's on the brake, the car's idling. It's still on. You're just not moving anywhere. And even if you took your foot off the brake, you would start to roll forward very slowly. There's so much potential for that car to go 70, 80, 90, faster even if you really put the pedal to the metal. But the idea is that you're not utilizing that potential all the time. Even just driving it around town, you're not even using half of that potential most of the time. That's the way our brains work. When we're not doing strenuous activity, and when we're not like fully engaging in all of our senses, panicking, fight or flight mode, like we are kind of in an idle state most of the time. And usually when you're getting a brain scan, that's what you're doing. You're sitting still, trying to like just float through, kind of deal with it. And you're probably really bored. Your brain's not doing a whole lot. But a good example of like how we do use our brains is when we sleep. When they do studies on brain scans on people who are sleeping in REM sleep specifically, the entire brain lights up because it's kind of flushing the systems, restarting all the neurons, because neurons communicate with chemicals and they have to kind of reset everything. And that's what happens when you sleep. That's why sleep's so important, because if you don't sleep enough, your brain no longer has the ability to keep communicating with its own neurons and it can lead you to dying. So you have 10% of your brain. It's not that we don't utilize it. It's that we don't constantly have the engine revved at full speed. So this analogy doesn't really work. We've learned it. Like we learned that like that interpretation of it, that a lot of movies like try to run with it too. It's not really accurate at all, but it is fun to think about. But because like now we can say at the very least we can think of gigalomaniac brains as being hyperactive and hyper hyper responsive. Like, imagine you have like a standard car, goes 0 to 60 in probably like, 10 seconds, 15, 20 seconds. You have a sports car, they can do 0 to 60 in like 3 seconds, 5 seconds. And you have, but now imagine a Gigalomaniac is a car that can go from 0 to 60 in like a millisecond. Just boom! Power. Way too much power. And it's too easy to call up. And that's kind of how they're able to manipulate the world around them. Anyway, moving on.
ギガロマニアックスの頭の中というのは実に興味深い。そのサンプルがノア2にとっていわば CPU の役割を果たすわけです。
Oh, interesting. So they want to make an artificial Gigalomaniac, a computer that can simulate the brain, specifically the parts of the brain that Gigalomaniacs use to influence and create, like, and shape the world. Then you could take any thought, any person who could control the computer could control reality.
サンプルが多ければ多いほどノア2の能力は本物のギガロマニアックスに近づき、やがて超えるでしょう。
Alright, I'm seeing the picture now.
納得してもらえましたか？結構。
He's having a brain conversation with someone. Nodosei nodded in satisfaction, exhaling a cloud of smoke as he returned his view to the scenery beyond the window. So is he talking to Kozupii, or is it someone else? Upon viewing it up close, the Shibuya nightscape was was the essence of vulgarity itself, leaving Nodosei solely with feelings of discomfort. His persistent belief that this remote location, however, was that it was more than adequate. Nevertheless, it would not be long before this nightscape would be a sight never to be seen again. The final experiment of his Project Noah would make sure of that.
世界が生まれ変わる日も近い。
Oh. Oh. Then is that Ayase? No, Ayase, Yumi. Or Yui. What was her name? What was her name? Blonde chick. Is that her? Is that who he was talking to? It was lunch break. I usually skipped lunch, but I had no one to eat with, and I didn't want to eat alone in the classroom. Recently, Rimi had started asking me to eat with her, but since I was me, I would always get embarrassed and refuse in the end. That meant that my usual routine would be to leave the classroom, take refuge in a place I felt comfortable. Sometimes it was the library, sometimes it was a courtyard. But now that everyone in the school knew my face, there was no place I could go where I could relax. The merciless gazes that pierced through me, the abuse and ridicule that was hurled at me, today too I walked around the school being exposed to all of it. Eventually I knew I had no choice but to duck into a private bathroom, but right when I was about to, I saw Nanami walking down the corridor leading to the first year building. It looked like she was walking alone toward the classrooms. Go see her! Talk to her! Come on, dude! Please! Speaking of Nanami, I hadn't spoken to her since the incident. I'd been avoiding her for the entire week. And I'd been doing it because I didn't know how to act once I saw her. I had put my own life before hers. It was the worst big brother ever. It was only a miracle that Nanami had been released safe and sound. I had nothing to do with it. Maybe Shogun had told her that it was my fault she'd gotten kidnapped? If he had, she would definitely be angry with me. Maybe she hated me. Maybe she didn't want to speak to me ever again. Oh, wait a minute. It was the froggy thing. Didn't she have one too? So was he talking to Nanami? That would be insane. That was why I didn't have the courage to go talk to her. But now that I'd seen her, I was starting to worry about her once again, even after everything. I wondered if I had truly wronged her. I wondered if she'd been injured. I wondered if she'd been hurt mentally. For a moment, the memory of the hand resurfaced in my head, but I shook my head violently to ward it off. That severed hand, along with the bangle I had been wearing and the cell phone I had been holding, it had all been a delusion, a real delusion. Because the hand had disappeared from the refrigerator right after thinking it somehow sprouted legs and walking away, it was far more reasonable to believe they had never been there in the first place. The fact that Nanami was alive and well was proof of that. Before I knew it, I'd broken into a run. I was chasing after Nanami, and her figure got bigger and bigger as I approached her. She hadn't noticed me yet. She walked, she played with her hair with the fingertips of her right hand. Come on. Come on. As I ran, I started to call out to her. On her right hand, the hand that was playing with her hair, the sleeve of her uniform ever so slightly slipped down. Suddenly, I was hit with a strange feeling, and I choked back the sound I was about to make. I stopped dead in my tracks. Oh, what the fetch? I'd seen it. It had been an extremely trivial, truly inconsequential feeling, and yet, white. It was white, as if trying to conceal something. A white bandage. Was it wrapped around her right wrist? So what does that even mean? Gosh darn it, game. I can't trust anything. Initiated by Momose, meeting was slated to be held at the Frieza Credit Bureau, a meeting in which Ban was now running nearly half an hour late. Momose's angry voice hurtled at him as he entered the office. In response to this, Ban gave him a minor shrug and then proceeded to walk to the desk of Frieza's president with an amiable smile on his face. Had he not brought any refreshments today, something he was beginning to believe may have been a lapse in judgment.
あら、つばちゃんは？
今日は別行動。
若い子をこき使って、バンちゃんは楽してるわけね。
いやいや、俺もちゃんとやってるよ。昨日だって徹夜でいろいろ調べてたんだぜ。
I'm sure you were, Mr. I saw the sword.
おかげで最近の女子高生の生態についてはかなり詳しくなった。
Oh, that sounds horrifyingly disturbing. Like, I get that you're actually probably telling the truth, but the way you're saying it, dude, sounds so creepy. Yeah.
あんたね、呆れて物も言えないわ。
で、こうして俺を呼びつけたってことは、あの子と連絡取れたってこと？
Yeah, I'm actually kind of curious what she found, because she's been scooping up a lot of interesting information, so for her to call out this time means she might got something good.
今来てるわ。
さすがももちゃん。
Who?
ちなみに、可愛い子かい？
Oh my god, you are just a creepy old man. Deserved. Momose promptly smacked Ban over the head, stopping his opportunistic grin in its tracks. The sheer speed with which he had turned her wrist made the slap especially fierce.
いつまでもバカなこと言ってんじゃないわよ、エロ親父。
Thank you.
冗談だって。
Before arriving at the building, Ban had made a private request to Momose. It entitled setting up a meeting between him and a certain person connected to the NewGen cases. Rather than anything work-related, it was merely to satiate her personal curiosity. He was not planning on talking about anything related to the NewGen investigations for the time being. And due to his position, Ben could not simply meet with the person on his own, else he would risk drawing the ire of the detectives he was getting ahead of. Momose urged Ben to come over to the corner of the office. It was fairly cramped space, almost all of which was already taken up by shelves packed full of files. The location was used as a reception area of sorts, and a pair of love seats had been wedged into the only place they could fit. Ban entered the section after Momose, and his eyes landed upon a lone girl sitting in one of the love seats. The girl was wearing a Suume Academy uniform. Her head and shoulders were curved towards the ground. She looked incredibly haggard.
ごめんね。お待たせしちゃって。
Who is it? Who is it? It is you! The girl looked up at the startled hearing Momose, and in the process her glasses had slipped down her nose a bit, leading her swiftly to readjust them with her finger.
いえ、平気です。
Are you gonna turn us in, huh? When she saw Ban, her expression turned slightly fearful before bowing her head in greeting a moment later. Ban felt somewhat hurt by this. He made every attempt to look as non-threatening as possible in both bearing and appearance, but the girl's reaction made him realize that despite his best efforts, the ferocity and intimidation particular to detectives was seeping out all the same. Looks like I've still got a lot more practicing to do, he thought with bitter amusement as he sat across from Yua.
楠ゆあさんだね。
はい。
亡くなったミアさんの双子の姉。それで間違いないかな。
Whoa, wait. Older twin sister of the late Mia-san. So she had a twin, Mia. So did she die recently? Did she die in that accident with the flash of white light? And some people died, like 100 or 200, right? And she got a phone call at that time and she started crying. Was that what happened? Yua slightly adjusted her posture, then returned to a nod. The first NewGen incident, the group dive, one among the 5 high schoolers that had been left to their deaths was a girl named Kusunoki Mia. Okay, that's even worse!
まあ、そんな緊張しなさんな。君を取り調べようなんて思っちゃねえんだ。雑談程度に思ってよ。本題に入る前に、ちょっと聞いていいかい？ゆあちゃんは妹さんが亡くなったことについてどう思う？
I thought you were gonna take a chill pill, dude.
ちょっとバンちゃん。
あ、悪いね。職業病ってやつか。気を使うような言い方できなくってな。ただ、気になってたんだ。
Like, sorry, I don't mean to be discourteous, but still, you need to talk to me about it.
楠木美也さんの遺族は奇妙だって。
Oh. Jeez, dude. I don't know. Maybe, like, warm her up a bit to, like, your questions. You just gotta come in just cold and evil. Well, not evil, but, like, harsh.
バンちゃん
Yeah.
いえ、いいんです。
Before Momose could raise her feet over Ban's incentive comment, Yua stopped her.
私もおかしいって思いますから。
Okay.
はあ、
集団ライブで飛び降りた5人には自殺する理由なんてなかった。家族や友人はみんなそう主張している。だが、ミヤさんの家族だけは違った。
Oh, okay. Ban took the fan out from his belt and began cooling himself.
何も主張しなかった。あっさり受け入れたって聞いてる。あまりに何も言わなさすぎて奇妙だったってな。
Oh, interesting.
なんでだい？
So if she has the power to affect illusions, or her sister does, or did, or they both do, / did, maybe that's part of it, is that they've had mental breaks, right? They had, like, something go wrong mentally before, and so, like, it wasn't an alien concept because they'd already seen them suffer so much.
お父さんもお母さんも、みやちゃんが死んでからおかしくなっちゃったんです。
Oh. Anguish seeped from Yua's voice.
最初はみやちゃんの事件の知らせを受けた日はそれでも泣いていたんです。お父さんもお母さんもとても辛そうでした。でも次の日の朝、なぜか二人は楽しそうに笑っていたんです。
Oh.
みやちゃんが死ぬ前と全く同じに戻ってたんです。
That's really weird. Yeah, that'd be super weird. Oh gosh, could you even be around family like that after that?
たった一日で。私、わけがわからなくて、二人はみやちゃんのこと忘れようとしてるんじゃないかって思って。そうしたら、お父さんが、笑いながら、
Oh no.
お前に妹なんていないよって。
Oh no.
みやちゃんが残した洋服とか靴とかを見せても、全然取り合ってくれないんです。
So something erased her from their cognition.
それはお前のために予備で買ってあったものだって。
Oh.
そうやってお父さんたちは、
Oh, that's
ニュー
horrifying.
スからも、警察の話からも目を背けて。
That's insane. Could you imagine that? That's terrifying.
記憶からみやちゃんのことを消し去ろうとしてるんです。
つまり双子じゃなかったことに。
Wow.
それで警察にもうちは一人っ子だって言って追い返してたわけか。
Okay. Yeah, that is bizarre.
私とみやちゃんは一卵性で、見た目は瓜二つなんですけど、あの子は、妹は親から嫌われていました。
Huh. Why?
あの子はいつも自分の気持ちを押し殺して、私のことを一番に考えてくれていたんです。
Huh. As Yua spoke, memories from when Mia had been alive resurfaced in her mind. First came a memory from when the two had been in elementary school. One day, some relatives had brought the girls a single large teddy bear as a present. In contrast to the joy Yuya displayed, Mia insisted that she did not like stuffed animals and proceeded to not even so much as look the plush's way. Both her relatives and parents were upset with Mia for not acting as a child should. But despite Mia's protesting, Yua whispered to her that the two of them could share it and that they could be something they could both treasure. However, in response to her sister's kindness, Mia simply said that she did not want it and that Yua could have it. About a month later, when Yua had grown tired of the teddy bear, she woke up in the night and happened to witness a certain scene. Aww. With an incredibly joyful look on her face, Mia was hugging and talking to the bear plushie. That was the first time Yua had ever seen her sister so happy. And from this, she realized that her sister's insistence about disliking stuffed animals had been a lie. Mia had been keeping her own feelings hidden, all for the sake of her older sister. The next day, Yua found a lovely drawing of a bear beneath Mia's pillow. Until her sister had grown tired of the teddy bear, Mia had been hugging and sleeping with the drawing in lieu of it. Things very similar to this happened again and again over all the 18 years they spent together. For their birthday celebrations, Yua always blew out the candles and the cake, but when Mia was prompted to do it, she would say, "I refuse to do something so ridiculous," angering her parents. Yua advanced to the private high school at Sueme Academy. Mia, meanwhile, had been misbehaving at school, deliberately scoring low on exams, therefore moved on to a public high school. Due to the exorbitant fees, their parents would only have been able to afford to send one of them to the private school. No matter how hard Yua tried to let her sister have something, Mia would always gain the upper hand and force Yua to be prioritized. To achieve this end, she even intentionally took a dislikable attitude. Why would she do that, though?
私は結局、ミヤちゃんの優しさに甘えて、今まで自分だけいい思いをしてきました。
I don't know. I mean, you were clearly aware of it, but like, maybe you didn't try as hard as you could have, or you could have called her out on it.
ミヤちゃんがいなくなって初めて、もっとあの子のために何かできることがあったはずだって、すごく後悔して。
Aww.
私が代わりに知ってあげればよかった。
Aww.
しかも挙句に親に存在そのものを忘れられてしまうなんて、こんなのあんまりです。あんまりにも悲しいです。
Yua, having now reached her limit, could no longer squeeze out any more words. She took off her glasses and pressed her fingers against the corners of her eyes, broke down in tears. Momose sat down beside her and gently rubbed her back.
それでユアちゃんは一人で事件のことを調べていたらしいの。ミヤちゃんに一体何があったのか知るためにね。
That's why she was looking into the situation. She wasn't obsessed with it. Well, she was, but because she had a good reason for it.
そりゃ大変だったろ。
そして一人の人物を突き止めた。
As Momose held Yua's shoulder, she turned her eyes toward Ban.
西條匠くんよ。
Right.
なるほどね。
Stroking the stubble on his chin, Ban leaned forward on from the sofa.
いつだったか西条と追跡劇をしてたっていう女子高生の話を所轄のデカから聞いたんだが。
Okay.
もしかしてユアちゃんだったりする？
Yua nodded apologetically.
ああ、興味あるな。詳しく聞かせてもおーと思ったけどちょっとごめんよ。
With a strained smile, Ban lightly bowed his head to Yua and Momose. His words had been interrupted by the cell phone in his suit pocket. He swiftly took out the phone and checked the screen. Sua's name was displayed across it.
もしもし、どうした？
先輩、7番目っす。
Oh no.
なんだと？
Sua's voice sounded strained. The sounds of investigators frantically scurrying about could be heard through the phone. Sua must have been at the investigation headquarters.
NewGen 第7の事件が起きたんすよ。
Oh, great. Fetch! Ban's eyes opened wide and his expression turned bitter as his teeth sank into his lip. Sensing the seriousness of the situation and his behavior, Momose and Yua watched the detective with unease.
外車は3人、友人同士らしいっす。
3.
3人とも胴体から体が切断されてて、
Oh, gosh.
それぞれの上半身と下半身を別々に入れ替えて手ぐす、釣りとっすね。それで縫い付けられてたっす。
Oh, Fetch! What is this? Whoever this new gen is, like, they're horrifically creative and disturbing. They just see everything as playthings, like people.
それと額にそれぞれ Q、D、N って読める傷が。
Oh my gosh. Q, D, and N. And wait a minute, 3. That wouldn't be the 3 guys that jumped us, right? The DQNs? No, like that wouldn't have been... That couldn't have been them, right?
何かのメッセージか。
さあ、そこまでは。それと気になることが。司法解剖の結果分かったんですけど、外車の胴体の切断部はノコギリとか包丁とかそういう刃物で切断されたものじゃないって。
Then how?
どういう意味だ。
なんか強い力で引きちぎられたそうっす。
Okay.
引きちぎられた。
Ban repeated Sua's words back to him with a low groan, then roughly scratched his head with the handle of his fan.
まるで怪獣だな。あるいは最近流行りの魔法使いとかな。
先輩、それマジで言ってんすか？映画オタクの自分でもさすがにその意見には同意しかねるっす。
単なる例えだ、バカな。映画ら、さっさと捜査に戻れ。
After barking that order to Sua, Ban ended the call. Well, fetch. That's horrifying. Okay. I think we'll end here. It's a little bit shorter, but again, I kind of mentioned at the beginning I might not be able to go as long, just because I've been doing a lot and I got a lot to do still. But dang. So Yua, she makes a lot more sense now. Kind of glad we finally got to see more from her because we hadn't heard anything for a while. Kozupii. Like, it couldn't be those 3 guys that Kozupii beat up, right? Like, it almost feels like actions and things are happening, right? And then somehow they're getting, like, edited. Like, Nanami getting captured and her hand cut off. Like, it almost seemed like that actually happened. Then it kind of seems like it didn't. But it kind of did. Like, a little bit she has a bandage on. So, like, maybe she got a cut on her arm. Like maybe it's like an alternate version of the events. But then they had the NewGen corpse where a lady had her hand cut off and stuffed down her throat, right? So are NewGen events like ways to edit a different thing that happened in reality, or like a way to make the cosmic scales balance? Because it just seems weird, right? It seems weird how similar these events are paralleling things that happen in Taku's life, but he's not directly involved in. It just seems it's like it really is starting to feel a bit more and more personal. Like it was his doctor that got attacked, his sister got kidnapped. All that wasn't, like, we can't really say that was NewGen because it hasn't been, like, even though it probably was the same guy, you know, Shogun. Then but like it's following that same pattern, like of the killing being tied to these weird events. It's like it is all about Taku after all. Like maybe he is really the NewGen killer, or like remember the sleepwalking I was talking about? Maybe he has an alternate personality. Maybe that's Shogun, and if that is Shogun, it's actually going around killing people. Like DQN, it's so specific. It fits so much into his personal feelings and thoughts. It's disturbing, really disturbing. I'm not sure what to make of it. But I guess I'm getting ahead of myself. We're not meant to know all the answers yet, but it's hard to know. And then, like, who was like the Nozumi guy talking to? I had a froggy, so it's probably either Yua or it's either Yua or Nanami or another character that had one of those like Goro froggy things, whatever. Like, I gotta know. I need to know. Really super sad about the sister though. That's crazy. The U.S. sister went through all that and then ended up being one of the victims in that first case. That's crazy. All right, well, thank you so much for being here. Hope you have a good day. Hope you had a good week. And I'm looking forward to hearing your comments and thoughts on this one. Obviously, no spoilers, but I still want to know. I'm curious to see what you think about my theories, maybe. Again, it's hard though, because like, can you really talk about them without spoilers if you know how the story goes? Guess not, but I don't know. It's still nice to hear what you think about it. So feel free to share what you feel is safe to share, and I'll respond in kind and all that good stuff. But yeah, guess we'll have to see what happens next week. And I wonder if we're like talking to Rimi or what, because I imagine that's the first thing he's gonna want to do is like have a chance to sit down and like actually talk with her, since lots happened. But again, we also know she's working with Shogun, so it's kind of scary that he's even talking to her. So we'll get to there when we get there. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you so much for joining me on the channel. I'm grateful to have you along for the ride, and hope you've been enjoying yourself as much as I am, because I'm having fun. This story's really kicking it up. I can see that this would be a hard one to get people into, because the first part's so cringy and so kind of weird. But now that it's really got going, I'm really excited to see how this plays out. So yeah, looking forward to making the rest of the series with you all. So until the next video watching me, I'll see me next. I'll see you there.